Fodder is the lifeblood of the game. Do you need to update a favorite? Do you want to upgrade a support? Do you want to create the ultimate Omni tank? Rearmed and Attuned units are the most effective way to get this done, but we've reached a point where it's not enough for these units to just have good fodder. We now have amazing units with exclusive fodder who are also good at duplication. So, which one is the best? And the next question, of course, is who are you using? I'd love to know in the comments, but let's get started. There are 2 ratings that I'm giving each of these units, and the first is all about fodder, and the big question is, do they have something unique? Now, this could be an attuned skill, and obviously these are very good, but also the latest and greatest rearmed weapon can be very, very powerful on certain units. The next thing is, are these unique in their archetype? Obviously, a unit gets ranked higher if they are the only one of their kind, and we're going to go over a couple of those, but we're starting to get enough units to where that is less and less of a factor now. The next thing we're going to look at is utility, and this is looking at what unique contributions as a unit these can put in. And keep in mind, you always have the rearmed and attuned privilege, which is you get to take on any other rearmed and attuned things that come on without having to give up your preference skill. This is really, really important and can give these units extra shelf life, as we're going to see. If you're looking at the weighting, I've weighted fodder at 40% and utility at 60%, which is basically saying, again, we have enough units that the utility should start to be something that we're really considering. But the thing I have to tell you is, if you already have a fodder factory built up, that alone makes them more valuable to you. So understand, even if you have a unit that's lower in this tier list, that does not mean they don't hold any value for you. But it's time for E tier. As units, these are difficult and expensive to work with, and they don't really have anything unique. So let's get started and look at who we have here.
The strong triumph.
There was a huge amount of competition for this bottom spot, and I've got to put Rearmed Líf here. And the issue is there's just not a whole lot you can do with this unit. Both Deadly Balance and Open the Future as preference skills and specials aren't great. And Arcane Eleuthir itself is very, very dated at this point. So it leaves a unit that still has Cav fodder that you can give out, and Cav fodder is nice right now. We've got more skills there, but this is a unit that doesn't contribute a whole lot other than just being a bank. If we look at Arcane Eleuthir, we have Slaying, Attack Defense -6, Guaranteed Follow-up Denial, and Guard. I mean, this was them introducing Sword Brave Hector, which was fantastic at the time. As far as Open Future, we have damage boost of 50% times defense and restores 25% of damage dealt. And you can already tell this is not just earth-shattering. Now, what we're going to start going over with these units at the beginning is more a deep dive into the individual pieces of fodder that are so valuable right now. As we move on, we'll talk more about the units, but Rearmed Líf is there mainly to hand that fodder off to you. I didn't give anyone lower than a 2 because I had a hard time with that. They're fodder factories, and I know it's a relative scale, but 2 was just the lowest that I could possibly give someone. And utility, again, this is bottom of the barrel right now. For Cavs, you have a lot of interesting skills. You have the Sly skills that can be inherited by anyone. You have the new stat skills, the Stronghold and the Verge of Death and the Crystalline Water, which are very good in specific scenarios. You have the Excel skills, which I love, and of course you have all the Flared skills, which even though we have Breath of Life, are still very good. You also have Fortification, which is a little more fun than good, but I still do like it quite a bit. For B skills, you have potent, and momentum is so good right now. And you have Reopening, and Wings of Mercy is good on every one of these units that you'll see. But you also have great skills like the Trace skills, and the Link skills, and the Detect skills. All of these can be put on other units and to great effect. As far as the C skills, Breath of Life is one of those that you can put on every one of these and it's fantastic, but Shadow Shift on these calves is just so good. It is one of my favorite skills right now. So that is something that you can hand off to this unit and be able to pass it around. If we look at a highlighted build, I mean, I don't have too much for you here. This is not even on a specific team. It's just if you wanted to build this up, I've got Double Sword, which is crazy that I'm putting Double Sword on this unit. We will have brand new swords soon, brand new arcane swords, and that's going to be something that you can put on this unit possibly to make this unit better, but I actually like Double Sword better than Arcane Eleuthir right now. But the whole point of this is to have momentum so that you proc No Quarter regularly, so you get piercing out of that. Then you double down on defense with Attack Defense Excel and Alarm Attack Defense, and of course Guard Echo. I have max invested these no matter who they are. Understand though, we are still very limited in attuned skills, so this is probably the best one that you can get on this unit, but he'll be looking for others down the road if you plan to invest in this unit. But we have a very similar friend coming up.
Scatter like petals.
Alfred was probably saved just because I did an entire Hall of Forms episode on him and really dug deep into what you could do with this unit. And honestly, getting a visible 20 defense is really interesting, and because Ignis and Bonfire exists, you can still get something out of this unit. But this was still one of the most overhyped units in all of Fae for good reason. There is not a lot of things you can do with him. If you look at Arcane Shang, you have Slaying, Omni +5, Guaranteed Follow-Up Denial, and then Special Acceleration. Special Acceleration alone has gotten power crept by special jumping in general, but Self-Improver does get interesting with just the visible stats, and there are certain things that visible stats are really nice to have on, and we talked about it, but Bonfire and Ignis is one of them, but that is all stats there, and strangely a -5 res because they were worried this unit would just take over if you gave him too much res. And then of course we have Guard. There's not a whole lot that you're putting Arcane Xiang on right now, and the unit himself, we'll go over use in just a second, but basically we're looking at the exact same fodder. No Quarter is excellent on these units to be able to pass it out. It is something that I always look at when we're looking at pre-fodder. You want a lot of these skills that you're giving out to have enough pre-fodder to where you can inherit a whole bunch of different things onto different units. We just talked about Shadow Shift being good, but that is one of the downsides. You need 4 inheritance slots, whereas No Quarter and any of the wave skills, you need 1 per. And so you can get 5 different things when you're handing that off to another unit. That is incredibly valuable. As for the score, I said he edged out Leaf, but we're still at 2-1. So we're still scraping the bottom of the barrel. If you look at a build you can do on this unit, and this is something I showcased in that Hall of Forms video, but Potent 4 and Bonfire means you're consistently proccing Bonfires, and you can actually go in and smack things with this. Particularly, I did some Sims versus Ike, and this unit was able to survive, which, I mean, that is quite something. So this unit was able to get a lot of damage off, and this is a fun thing you can do with this unit. And keep in mind, a lot of times this is free because you are collecting the stuff on this unit to hand it off to someone else. So you end up with a lot of this stuff without actually having to go out and get it. But it's time to look at one of the most contentious rearmed units that I have ever seen.
Death is upon you.
Okay, Ganglöt, apologists, I'm gonna come to your defense. Listen, this was the only infantry melee unit that could be a fodder factory for a long time, and there are a lot of fantastic things you can hand to melee infantries. So I understand where you were coming from. But there were a few of you who kept on telling me this was a good unit, and I had a lot of difficulty with that. Arcane Downfall was still a very interesting weapon at the time, and we have Slaying, Omni +5, Special Acceleration, follow-up denial, and then that 7 HP healing. What this meant is this could be handed off to a Gale Force unit, and they had special acceleration built in. At the time, we were scraping, and this was the only arcane axe we had. Since then, we've had some excellent options, and we'll get to those later. But if you're looking at the different fodder, it's not hard to see the defense for this unit. We have gotten so many good things for Omni tanks, and this unit can help you with that. But the bonus doubler skills are fantastic, including distant bonus doubler, which is one of the best DCs in the game right now. Still, Lagoo's Friend 4 is of course something to look at and is just a fantastic skill, but we also have Bulwark and a sea of different sea skills that were amazing. From Firm Canto Curb Stomp, which is fantastic. You have Endless Tempest, and you have Infantry Null Follow-Up, and Creation Pulse, and Pulse Out Blades, and Summoners. These are all amazing skills, but we also have fantastic specials for these units too, and Gust, and Boulder, and Godlike Reflexes, and even Vital Astra. All of these can be handed out with Ganglöt, and the fact that she's green means it's easy to summon for her. On average, you're going to get more Ganglöts if you summon with the same amount of orbs as a unit that's, say, colorless. So that is something to keep in mind and consider, but this unit is still a 2 and a 1, so I mean, that's pretty low. If we look at a build for this unit, we do have a scenario here where there isn't as much full null follow-up in the game. And it means that if you throw Arcane Giant Axe and Null Counter Disrupt and Lagoo's Friend 4 and Creation Pulse, you are reliably proccing Aethers. And with Micaiah support, in particular that is a Crux Micaiah, and with Lumera throwing out stones, that means that this unit can actually take a lot of punishment. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is tip-top of the meta, but this is usable. And again, that is because we get so many things from being a rearmed unit that you're handing off to other folks that on the way end up on this unit. So this is a build to consider. I am a huge fan of Creation Pulse combined with Lagoo's Friend 4. You can do a lot of fun things with that. You do have to worry about debuffs, but I mean, this isn't light season, so Freyr's not there to ruin our day. But next, we need to talk about a rearmed darling that so many people loved.
Brilliant Blinding Nova!
I don't understand why they didn't give more units preference skills in the beginning. It really, it just seemed like a missed opportunity. It seemed a bit lazy, and Ophelia was in that boat. But the thing that set Ophelia off at the time was how amazing Special Spiral was. It is hard to look through today's lens with how much piercing we have and to look back and remember how great that was. This was a unit that had that and could hand it out already in her kit. That made her very, very valuable. If you just look at Arcane Eclipse, we have Slang, Omni +5, Special Acceleration, Quicken Pulse, which is nice, Guaranteed Follow-Up, and nullifying the debuffs on attack. This unit was really designed to be an AoE nightmare, just like her original form. We just really would have liked to see a preference skill to help us out there. When we're looking at fodder, these infantry ranged units have a fantastic slew of things that they can get, because they can get a lot of those C skills that we've already talked about, along with some other fun things in the A skill. The B skill is really where they suffer a bit, but they can still have Lagoo's Friend 4 and pass that out, which is a premier skill, along with Resonance, which is also excellent on any ranged magic unit. I absolutely love that skill, and this was a unit that could hand that out for you. Other than that, though, IS has been very leery about handing out good B skills for ranged units. They are much more likely to give them to melee units, and this is still a 2 and a 1. But the edge out here was this unit had better base fodder than the other units that we just talked about. So it was an easier path to hand stuff out, and is still an easier path. Times Pulse 3 and Special Spiral 4 are still relevant in the meta today, even if they aren't just the most amazing things on the planet. If you're looking at a build, what I've got here, and I've started adding in Arena Assault because I know so many people are struggling with that and getting enough units to counter all of the absolutely stupid things that we're seeing in Arena that trickle down to Arena Assault. But when you pair this unit up with Catria, good things happen. I mean, this is an AoE nuke nightmare. You throw Arcane Blute Gang on there, you have a Times Pulse in the Attuned skill, and you are regularly getting off Blazing Wind, as well as having Piercing with that Resonance 4 and a lot of true damage as well. This is an excellent setup, and Triandra just sets that up with the additional burn damage. Arena is not a place where we're seeing a lot of Breath of Life, so this unit can still be very dominant as a role player in that spot. Still, that is a role player in a very small game mode that we have right now, which is why she isn't ranked higher. But next we have one of the hardest to pronounce units in all of the game.
Nothingness reigns.
Watching Feytubers struggle over how to say Ginnungagap was one of the joys of my life the day she was released. It was absolutely fantastic. The problem is this unit never really had a place. This was a support nuke that never really excelled in any one thing, and that carries over into today. There are a lot of interesting things about this unit, but if you're trying to use her, you struggle finding the exact place. If we look at Arcane Void, we have Slang, Omni +5, Guaranteed Follow-Up, Special Acceleration, and an Omni -X, which all has to do with penalties, and you can get some nice debuffs that way. We have Ruler of Nihility, which is the preference weapon, and this is if foe's HP is greater than a 75% or penalty is active, you get Attack Defense -5 in combat and Special Jump, which is very good because she's trying to proc lethality. And then at start, inflicts on foes within 5 and splashes, Attack Defense -7, Discord, and Flash. Flash at the time wasn't quite as good, and we have so many units right now that still have NCD that this is not something that is amazing enough to field her. And a lot of that is, if she was able to hit harder, this would be a bigger deal. The thing is, we have so much damage reduction, and this unit relies on proccing lethality. Null follow-up also just is everywhere when it comes to Omni tanks, and so this unit wasn't able to do as much damage as she really needed to. Still, there was a short time where she was an interesting unit to field. The problem with a Cav Dagger is there aren't a lot of things you can inherit. We're still in that 2-in-1 range, and there are some interesting things in the form of the standard Sly skills and the stat givers, and of course we have the boosts. But the B skills are probably the most interesting, but also the most niche. You have all of the disarm skills, and there are a lot of good ones out there, but daggers in general just don't hit hard enough for them to matter as much as they should. We will go over a dagger where that is an exception, but by and large, it is difficult to make daggers work right now, and it really hurts this unit's value. As far as C skills, you do get a couple interesting dagger skills there. With Pulse Smog is really what I'm talking about, and Pulse Smog is really nice. You can also do, of course, Shadow Shift and Breath of Life. There's some other interesting things, and we do have Lethality. Lethality is still one of the best specials in the game, believe it or not, and is incredibly powerful and can help upgrade a unit. But this unit just didn't have enough to really cross that threshold into meta-relevant nuke and fell off from there. If you're looking at a place to use this unit, I do have her here in Aether Raid's defense, and what she is doing is basically handing out that flash status in order to help you take out units. We do have a lot of saviors right now, and there's only one that has NCD. So flash is still valuable, but I would be hard-pressed to build a defense around this, and there are some other more interesting ways to get this done. Still, if you are a fan of Ginnungagap and are good at pronouncing her name, this is a great way to go about that. But next, we hit up a unit that I know several in our Discord really wanted to love.
For the pride of Brodia!
The last unit for E tier is Alcryst, and this is this is an interesting unit, and we do have a case where Desperation is very good, and this unit can do that. And I still believe this is a very good bow, at least by today's standards for arcades, and that is, I am expecting a new wave of arcane weapons to come out. When that does, we'll see how everything pans out, but let's look at arcane bow in particular. We have slang, attack defense +6, nullity buffs, offensive no follow-up, and you have that desperation effect, which is so nice. Get Behind Me has speed defense -5 and defense -30% of foe's defense in combat against the enemy, as well as null guard. This unit is trying to proc as many Deadeyes as they possibly can. We talked about ranged units and the fodder they can get. Again, this is a wide range of things. Infantry easily has the most things that they can hand out, which is very nice. The new thing you're really looking at there is Curve Shot, which is a fascinating skill if you can get piercing on your unit. And there are a lot of different ways to get piercing on bows. Still, Deadeye is probably better on units like Alcryst, but if you can find the right support, this unit can perform. I still have him as a 2 in fodder, but you've noticed I've bumped him up to a 3 in utility. Because again, Desperation, and Desperation particularly in a shield fighter world, when you combine them with something like Catria, can really get the job done, but you need a lot of help. Speaking of, this is a revival of the old Catria balls. We've talked about how Ruse 4 isn't really in the meta as much as people think it is, and so these are still usable. Having this unit be able to get 4 hits off before the opponent can counter is a big deal. You do have to stack his speed though, so you're most likely going to have other nukes in order to help him out. Say Felix or Sigurd, because, you know, they're on every defense, but this is a way to use this unit. You'll notice I've actually left most of the kit the same and added on Firm Kento Curb Stop just for some extra support for the team. This unit has a good kit, and because of that can be nice to hand stuff off to people, but overall, this is still a very hard unit to use. That wraps up E tier, and you can see all of these units here. They struggle as units, but understand the amazing thing about fodder factories is the roll compression. The fact that these can still be used for fodder duplication means that there will always be a place for them if they're in your barracks. So don't be too down if one of these is the one that you're building up right now. But it is time to move into D tier. As far as fodder, this is about the same as E tier, but as units, these often have unique situations that they can be used, whereas E tier just didn't cut it. And we're going to start off with a unit that on paper I thought was going to be much better than he was.
I'll never let go of hope!
Rearmed Sothe had such an interesting sounding kit, and it was Bane in particular that was supposed to bring the opposing units down to 1 HP. Unfortunately, that was before we realized that that didn't have anything to do with flat damage reduction or DR in general. Like, basically this was a tease. He didn't get units down to 1 HP at all, and that really hurt what he was going to do. If we look at Arcane Tempest, we have Slang. As far as in-combat buffs, we have plus 25% of foes attack, -4. Usually that's about 14. You have full no follow-up based on speed, Times Pulse, which is good, and then pierceable DR of 30%. Bane, though, had a defense res -40% on the opponent, 100% piercing, which is very nice, and if foe will be alive, sets damage equal to foe's HP -1. And the big thing is that is set before foe's flat DR. And then of course you have another damage reduction of 30%. Now that 30% is unpierceable, and that's nice, but we have so much flat DR right now. So much flat DR. This unit just didn't stand a chance and really needed to be released before when he was in order to be meta relevant. There are still some interesting things you can do, but he definitely fell flat as far as putting out damage. And dagger units, that's the main thing they do. If we look at the unit himself, I mean, already having potent disarm was nice, but we talked about having that is a limited thing. There aren't just a whole lot of units that want those potent skills, but we still have all the dagger things, including Pulse Smog and a lot of other great stuff. So this is a good unit. And as far as fodder-wise, had a lot of interesting things already in his kit and interesting things to hand out. But the utility was just in the tank, and this is not a unit that was able to kill a lot of different things that he was supposed to. This was a unit that severely lacked in killing power. I still think Arcane Tempest can be used, which is why he did get a higher fodder ranking, but understand that as a unit, we still have the utility of 2. If you're looking for a way to build this unit though, again, I've put this in a Catria ball, and you have a lot of interesting things you can do here with Sly Swift Sparrow, and Potent Disarm as a skill is very good, and then of course Pulse Smog. I do have him with Arcane Sly Knife. The special jump makes Bane really pop off a lot faster and gives you the opportunity to get 2 of those off in 1 turn, which is nice. But again, we still definitely struggle with damage potential. It is nice when you pair him up with someone like Ursula, just in order to get that desperation effect. Also, we've got Deathblow Echo on here because why not? Is extra attack, and this unit needs absolutely as much as he can get.
Can't stand in my way!
Here's where things get a little more interesting with Attuned Nino, and Nino had a lot of things that were really coveted at the time. The extra movement and the ignoring terrain was fantastic. Fleeting Echo, we hadn't hit yet the point where just everyone had piercing, so Fleeting Echo itself was still fairly decent. The biggest problem with this unit though was the attack, and let's look a little bit more about what this unit has. And Gondul has Slaying, you have damage reduction and Omni +5. You have additional stats based on the number of bonuses you have, and then to unit and allies within 2 spaces, you get attack speed +6. Visible buffs are always nice. Fang Ties is really what we were looking at though, with Canto 1, +1 movement, and essentially you had a times pulse ×2, which means that you should be able to proc lethality pretty regularly. But looking at the ratings, we have all the same stuff we talked about with Sothe as far as fodder, and again, infantry units have a lot of good stuff. A rating of 3 has a lot to do with Fleeting Echo though, and even with the amount of piercing out there, attuned skills are just incredible things to have. Keep in mind this is just a 3, we haven't gone crazy here, but I love the idea of being able to give units without preference skills an additional thing on them, and Fleeting Echo is a thing, even if not just absolutely groundbreaking. The utility of 3 just feels low for a unit that has extra movement like this unit does. You have all the inheritable stuff from infantry units, but the range of a cavalry, and for a long time that was really good, but we aren't in the days of Yuri anymore, and this unit has definitely fallen behind, and even when released, was not the most amazing thing. If you're looking for a build, you can still do a lot of fun Cavline things with this unit. The biggest thing though is the C skill is taken up, and there are so many great things that you can put on an infantry C skill to help the team around you. Still, the Cavline Light with Ninja Lucina is a good way to go, and if you really want to be using this unit, Blazing Flame is a nice thing to have, and Times Pulse Echo makes that easy to do. It does make me a little sad that Arcane Sly Knife is actually better than Gondul, but again, we talked about the ability to upgrade these units is a big deal. But next we're going to come upon a unit that I still have a hard time imagining why he got so much hate.
This is your fate.
Okay, now remember, these are unique contributors that we're talking about here. So we have Rearmed Chrom, who has Fate Unchanged, which makes him a self-refresher, which by itself is a fantastic thing. And we have Arcane Devourer, which is still the best inheritable sword that we have in the game. And I have never seen so many people hate on a unit as this one. It was kind of nuts. Looking at the weapon, the biggest thing was the speed-based null follow-up, which is hard to look at in today's lens and realize how good that was, but this was absolutely fantastic. You add on special acceleration, and this unit was really a decent Gale Forcer and could give Arcane Devourer to other units that wanted to be Gale Forced units. A Fate Unchanged, the biggest thing was that exposure. Well, the second biggest thing. Obviously, the biggest thing was the self-refresher, but exposure is a good thing to have, and keep in mind if it's applied mid-turn, that means it's something that can't be cleansed. Having extra damage on the opponent is never a bad thing, and this unit had a lot of value, and even does still today, because again, this is a decent Gale Forcer with a self-refresh. Looking at the cav fodder, in particular for this unit, Shadow Shift is so nice to have and to be able to pass out, but we have a lot of the same things looking here. I still love the Sly skills for their ability to be handed out so easily, and Momentum 4 is just fantastic. But when you're looking at a unit like this, the detect skills and the things like that are very, very good. When you think about the link skills and even the snag skills that this unit comes with are fairly good in order to help you give debuffs on the opponent. Still, there's really nothing overly unique about this unit, even with Arcane Devourer being the best arcane sword in the game right now, and I've given him a fodder of 2. I do have a utility of 4 though, because I still think he can be used as a Gale Force unit, which is the build that we're going to be looking at. We have Arcane Devourer, Gale Force, Attack Speed, Excel, which I think is a lot of fun. We have the Link skill, which handing out Canto on a Gale Force team is invaluable. And of course, Shadow Shift in order to get just extra movement. The nice thing about this being a rearmed unit is that you can throw Mercy Wing Echo on there and have a lot of versatility in how this unit is going to work. But keep in mind with Gale Force, that means you can get a total of 3 actions out of this unit. If you add in Shadow Shift, that means a 4th action. That is incredibly powerful on a team like you have with Felix and Rune. Rune specifically being there because giving you an extra unit means you have extra space for things like a Chrom, who can help you get closer to the unit while debuffing them and doing a lot of good. Now, don't go crazy here. Like, we're still in D tier. I'm not saying this unit is amazing. I'm saying the hate on this unit went way too far. But let's talk about one of the Fey royalty units.
With all I have.
Rearmed Reinhardt was such an interesting unit, and still is. I still see this unit used because, again, quad hits are one of the main ways you beat Shield Fighter. But I think we all wanted a little more, and God, I wanted Arcane Thunder to be a skill that actually had Brave in it so you can hand it out. As is, when we look at this, Arcane Thunder is slaying an Omni +5, lull speed res, which is good. You have special acceleration and then null follow-up. As far as Thunder's Fist, you get an Omni +7, which, I mean, even at the time wasn't exactly that big. You get true damage equal to 15% of the attack. You get damage reduction, which is nice, and then if you move more than 2 spaces, you get the Brave effect. All of that is really good. If we look at the ratings, I've got a 3 for fodder, because honestly there isn't just a whole lot for this unit, but you do come with Speed Res Far Trace, which I like, and Arcane Thunder is okay. The utility to 4 is something we all felt like was going to be better with whenever they came out with a Reinhardt ult and just didn't quite make it. We've seen all of these skills before. It is important to note that this unit can run Resonance, and that is something that ups the value a bit, but not enough to give them more of a utility of 4. If we're looking at the build, I've actually got Arcane Euphoria on there for the additional true damage. We have Miracle in order to stay alive through all of the Shield Fighter shenanigans, Resonance 4, and Side Attack Speed, just trying to stack as much as you can possibly get on that, and of course, Deathblow Echo for as much damage as you can possibly get. Can this unit do a lot of good in Arena Assault? This unit can survive. They can kill sometimes, but the biggest thing is you can get chip damage because of Miracle, and that's a big deal. I have really been a big proponent of people setting up their Arena Assault teams ahead of time with reserve teams. And what that means is on every one of your reserve teams, you can have a full set of emblem rings if you have those available to you. It means that things like Miracle plus the Marth ring become very viable, and it means that you can have another unit come and finish off the absolute monstrosity that is trying to destroy you. So this is a fun build to do. This is not something that I'm ever going to say is meta relevant though. Still, if you want to use Reinhardt, here he is.
No more games.
Last in this tier is one of my favorite rearmed units just because I love Sonya, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is the most meta relevant unit, which is kind of where we're at. But keep in mind, this whole tier is about role players, and I do think she can serve a decent role. Now, if we look at Arcane Caliburnus, we have Slang, Omni +5, a guaranteed follow-up, special acceleration, and lull attack res. The problem is I really do like Arcane Truthfire better, and that is unfortunate, or I guess fortunate because we've got a better thing available to this unit, but still, beyond Witchery, we have an Omni +8 on all stats, which is kind of incredible. Like, that is a neat thing to just get pure stats and makes this unit a fantastic AoE nuke. You have offensive tempo, and at the start of turn, you get a lot of extra cooldown depending on what turn it is, which can be, again, great if you're an AoE unit. Now, for fodder, we've got a 2, and because this unit has such good access to AoEs, as well as having extra stats and a lot of other things in order to give this unit a harder hit, I do have this at a utility of 5. We also have Flare available to this unit, which we haven't talked about, but there are a lot of other great things here. I mean, again, if it's an infantry unit, it has Lagu's Friend 4 available to you, but Resonance 4 is probably the thing you're looking at when you're talking about handing out different skills to mages. It's just unfortunate that it takes 4 slots. Let's look at the build though, and this is actually something I use in Arena Assault, and I mean, not to this invested level, but I do an AoE build on Sonya, and she still does an excellent job. But this is Resonance 4, Life and Death, and Time's Pulse Echo. So you're going to get a lot of Blazing Winds off, and that is absolutely fantastic. The Visible 86 attack, and then you can add on 6 extra from a Visible bonus, leaves a 92 visible attack that's coming at you, which is huge. That is really huge. But again, we have a lot of AoE nukes at this time. There's a lot of extra damage going into this unit from all of these great things, but the day when all you needed was to be an AoE unit has passed, and this unit is still usable. I still love using her, but this is another unit that the meta has kind of passed by. And that kind of sums up this tier in general. It is interesting that Nino is the absolute lowest attuned unit that I have in this entire list. And that's again because of that Fleeting Echo is just, it is not a fantastic attuned skill in general. Even at the time, it wasn't just great, but I am a huge fan of the attuned skills, and we're going to see more of those coming up. If we look at C tier, we start getting into role players with usable fodder. This is not just situational, this is fodder that can be used in a lot of really fantastic situations.
I'll end this quickly.
This is my biggest tier. There are a lot of units that we need to get through here, and the first up is Rearmed Ingrid, who I still really enjoy using. Now, CJ in the Discord has brought up that it's possible that I should consider saturation a little more, and just the fact that there are so many melee flyers is possibly a reason to drop this unit down, but I really like Ingrid. So let's look at exactly what everything does here. Arcane Lewin is still a good weapon. This has Slang, Omni +5, you get true damage, and that includes AoEs. You get a lull speed defense, and then you get speed-based null follow-up, which is fantastic. Knightly Devotion is less so. You get Canto remaining +1 and Omni +8, null debuffs, and healing. At the time, that was actually a pretty good A skill for flyers, but we have since gotten some better things. And when you look at flyer skills, you can't look at them without seeing the guidance skills, which I know are old at this point, but are still absolutely fantastic to use. We also have some really fun things like the Air Orders 4, and I mean, that is a skill that people completely forget about, but essentially it makes this unit into Legendary Hinoka, which is fantastic. There are also some fun things you can do with Momentum, because Momentum is just fun, but Endless Tempest is another thing, and Attack Speed Mastery. Flyers have a lot of amazing skills that you can hand out, and they help in both support in regards to mobility and in attack. This unit can do a good job handing them out, and you get one for free in the codes. As far as fodder, Arcane Lewin is still the best lance in the game, Arcane Lance. And that's why I have this unit at a 4, along with the other stuff that this unit can hand out. Utility, I know we're starting to get more and more anti-warping, but I still think flyers are just absolutely fantastic. Another thing you can use on this unit is aerial maneuvers. That is a fantastic skill. So there are a lot of fun things you can do with Ingrid. If we're looking at a build here, this is making her into a melee frontliner, which is a lot of fun, but it's also support for your other flyers. This is, again, is more of an arena assault thing. I don't know that there are a lot of places that you're going to use Ingrid otherwise, but being able to offer that support, and this is warping in, smacking with the Celica ring, surviving, and then helping your other units swarm around you. That's very valuable, and the fact that you can also get Soaring Echo on flyers means that you can have crazy air order skills as well as extra warping for infantry units and whatever else you need. There are a lot of fantastic things you can do with flyers. So if you need a Swiss Army knife, a melee flyer is a great way to start. We're going to go over a little more interesting unit here though.
Avert your eyes.
Plumeria is still fascinating to me because there are some really interesting things this unit does. Charge and Foe Penalty Doubler are both excellent things to be able to hand out. We are certainly in a meta where mobility isn't quite as valuable though, which is why this unit is lower than she would have been a year ago. Certainly a year ago, this unit was just absolutely phenomenal. Now, Charge is still good though. And if we look at the individual skill, Arcane Euphoria is okay. We have Sling and Omni +5, guaranteed follow-up, true damage, and then we have 30% from first attack. What we're really here for though is Cloying Dreams, and you get, of course, grants another action, an Omni +5 to target, Foe Penalty Doubler, you get Charge, and then you get a debuff on the foe. All of those are really valuable skills, along with some other things that you can put on dancers in order to get even more buffs or debuffs into your team. If we're looking at the rating, I've still got a fodder of 2. Arcane Euphoria is good, but I don't see a whole lot of places to use it, short of Reinhardt, strangely. It's just not as meta-influential as a lot of other things that we see. Wings of Mercy 4, though, I mean, in the base kit is still very, very good and one of my favorite skills. Utility, however, I put this unit at a 6, and I understand there are a lot of dancers right now, but I do think this one is unique in giving out Charge. As far as all the things you can get on this unit, I mean, you're looking at it, and there's an additional thing with Crux there that is absolutely fantastic on any sort of dancer. If we're looking at a suggested build, I didn't put Crux on here. I did put Speed Res Ploy, and the biggest reason is one of the unique things you can do is stack res on this unit, and that is something that is incredibly valuable. You're seeing this is a +10 with nothing else there, no other support, and you're getting a 70 visible res. I figured I had to take advantage of that, although there is a case to be made that Crux would have been more valuable. Still, we have the Sigurd ring to give this unit extra movement and Canto, which is really underrated on Dancers. You get Attack Defense Cantrip and Soaring Echo. This unit can do a lot to support, and I don't have her on a specific team, but you guys know how Dancers work. Once you get them, you can start to put them on a lot of different teams and have a lot of fun with them. I can't say it enough, but Soaring Echo is still to this day one of the absolute best attuned skills, and being able to put it on a Dancer is fantastic.
A clear, piercing shot.
Rearmed Tana is still an interesting unit because of the ability to warp, and it lends herself to a lot of very interesting situations when it comes to player phase solutions in Aether raids. The days of her being a major contributor in SD are far behind her, but there's still a lot of fun ways you can use her. If we look at Arcane Nostron, we have Slang, Omni +5, you get true damage, a guaranteed follow-up, and then 30% of foes attack as a DR. For Soaring Wings, you get Canto, and you get Warping, and then some debuffs there. That Warping is the biggest deal, and being able to move within 2 spaces of an ally within 2 spaces lends itself to a lot of really neat things. We've talked about it before, but how many times have you seen the strategy used where this unit hops over, smacks a tile, and then allows someone like Felix to come in and just absolutely destroy the defense at an angle that was not planned for? That's really what Warping does. And I know we do have Barricade now, but because it is so exclusive, I don't think we're going to see that on a lot of different units for a while. So you're probably limited to using this unit in Astra Season, but there are still a lot of valuable things to do in Astra Season with this unit. If we look at the fodder, ranged flyers, they really get hurt, and I've got this unit at a 4. Arcane Nostron is still usable. It's not fantastic though. You do have Guidance 4 though, and Guidance 4 as natural fodder is fantastic. And believe it or not, Attack Speed Unity is still very good, but ranged flyers just don't get a lot of things. They don't. I mean, this particular unit can do Curve Shot, but there isn't as many things for those units. I've given her a 5 for utility for the exact reason we talked about. Warping is fantastic, and until it is just completely shut down, I'll continue to pound that table for it. As far as the build highlight, I've got Soaring Echo here so that you can put Odd Speed Wave, and the real purpose is when you jump across, this unit can actually attack something because of Curve Shot and either do chip damage or have some other shenanigans that can be accomplished then, and let someone like Felix hop over. You add in someone like Rune and you've got an extra unit coming, and player phase shenanigans happen, which are a lot of fun. So this is a build that can still be used to this day. The only thing I'll say is Attack Speed Mastery. I know you already have Canto, but you get a lot of stats out of Attack Speed Mastery, and it's fun. Next up, we have the lowest ranked new unit in the Rearmed and Attuned tier list.
Raging Inferno!
I keep on having to shrink the text on these. It is absolutely insane what we have to go through to get all of this stuff on one page. There's a lot of stuff on this unit, and because of that, I feel like this unit should be higher, but it just doesn't really come together in the way that you'd want. That's not to say this is a bad unit. This tier is all about having role players, and this unit is absolutely that. But ultimately, this is kind of an upgraded Sonya, and sometimes just a little bit of an upgrade. But let's look at Arcane Truthfire, which I do like this weapon a lot. We have Slaying and Omni +14, Orders, Attack +6, you get true damage, you get pre-combat cooldown, which of course goes towards AoEs. You also get special jump, that is one or the other because of the way that works. And then you get flat DR equals 7, which is nice. And then you have Gift of Magic, and this is really where this unit got hurt. The AoE damage is ×1. That you really needed a multiplier there. Even 1.25 would have given us something, but essentially this is just 2 hits. I mean, that's what you're getting out of this unit. Hardy Bearing is very nice, but we don't have a specific case for it in the meta right now. We do have Piercing, and of course, Unpierceable DR because it is in the special. What that comes down to meaning is that the utility of this unit is still just a 4. It is, again, that's right about where Sonya was. It is hard to find use cases where this unit performs so much better than Sonya that that unit is just left in the dust. I do like this unit's fodder. Arcane Truthfire is an excellent arcane weapon. We just read the laundry list. Like, that is fantastic. And of course, the other thing is this unit has all of the stuff that infantry units have. So there are a lot of things this unit can hand out. But ultimately, I just thought a brand new Rearmed was going to be ranked higher than this, and she is absolutely not. If we're looking at ways to use this unit, you can put her on a team and she can handle any sort of hardy-bearing shenanigans without having to use a seal. Specifically, Eirika is in the meta, and this unit can have an AoE that just absolutely murders Eirika. So that is a good thing. But again, there aren't just a whole lot of cases where that comes in handy. And so for this build, I've just gotten rid of it. And we've gone with Blazing Flame and Truthfire, because I think this is a better way to use this unit. You have the additional piercing with Resonance 4. You get Times Pulse Echo for, making sure you reliably proc AoEs. This is a fantastic unit this way. But again, what we talked about, even if you look at the base attack, Sonya had more, which is really an interesting place to be in. But that's not to say this is a bad unit. And if you are picking one of them, you're gonna pick this unit because Arcane Truthfire is so much better. But if you already have Sonya built up, you're probably not upgrading to Lilina. But next up, we have one of these stranger rearmed units in this entire list.
Forgive me for this.
All right. Arcane Nihility is not only the only arcane beast weapon, it's one of the only inheritable beast weapons that we have. This is just bizarre, and the fact that she's a cav means there are so many beast things that you want to inherit on her that are locked to other movement types. This is really interesting, and I expect at some point we will get another rearmed beast, and I'm really curious to see what exactly that holds. But she holds a lot of value just because she's the only beast rearmed unit. Let's look at the weapon though. Arcane Nihility has Slaying, Omni +6, lots of debuffs. You get a lot of DR. You get a bonus and penalty reversal, which is really nice on the enemy, especially when they have, in modes that have a lot of bonuses like Arena, this comes in very handy. You get full no follow-up and true damage. It's not a bad weapon. As far as Power of Nihility, you get an Omni +9, you get Special Acceleration, and then you get Healing. At the time, this was a fairly hard-hitting unit. Right now, she's not fantastic. If you look at the ratings, again, fodder being 6 has everything to do with the fact that this is the only beast unit. Look at the skills there. Attack speed wild is fantastic on a lot of different units. The fortune skills are really, really good. This unit can hand them out. Think of all of the specific B skills. Beast Sense 4 and Beast No Follow-Up and whatever the one that gives piercing is that I've completely forgotten the name of. And there are a lot of really interesting things that you can give beasts. And this is the only way you get fodder duplication. Nimble Beast, Sturdy Beast, Fierce Beast. In order to build up a beast unit right now, and fodder moves so fast, you have to have individual units coming into your favorite instead of having a unit that can pull all of these things together unless you have an Eitr. And not a lot of people have this unit, so I am anxious for them to give us a new beast rearmed unit or a Attuned unit. A Attuned unit would be fantastic, and they could give us a beast transformation attuned skill. IS, are you listening? I mean, this is something that you should do. The utility, though, that might even be generous. It is hard to use this unit right now with all of the crazy stuff going on. I say that. 4 is about right on this unit, but if we look at a way to use this unit, I mean, this is Nimble Beast, Attack Speed Fortune, Momentum 4, and of course, Barricade. Barricade is amazing. Having this unit on a defense and being able to have that, you can move Larother into a save unit, and there's a lot of fun things you can do with this. When you add in Momentum, this unit can hit hard and regularly proc specials. So this is something you can do. Again, we're talking about a role player here, but this unit can still perform. I am just anxiously waiting for whatever new thing they're going to give us soon.
I am your nightmare.
Understand it. I hope this drives us home. Triandra is one of my favorite units to use. So that's where we're at with this tier. There are still so many things you can do with the units in this tier. We've talked about Deathblow Echo, but as an attuned skill, I know it's just for attack, but particularly when you get it for free. I mean, Deathblow 2 is not the most amazing thing, but it's just 4 extra attack, which is not terrible to have. The real thing with Triandra, the fact that she is melee and a flyer gives her a ton of versatility, and the fact that she gives pre-combat damage out is, I know it's only 5, but when you're talking about Gale Force teams, every little bit helps. You really need as much as you can possibly get. Harrowing Dream giving out guard and debuffs and sabotage is not something to ignore either. But let's look at the exact wording here. You got Flower of Caring with Slaying, Omni +5, true damage. We talked about the pre-combat damage, but giving that out as in an area of support is fantastic. And then, of course, speed defense -5 during combat, so you're supporting your team with extra speed and attack, basically, which is fantastic, right? Then we have To Foes in Cardinal Direction, Omni +5, Guard, and Sabotage. And then, of course, we have Deathblow Echo, which, I mean, it does kind of crack me up that that's just Deathblow 2. Like, they couldn't give us Deathblow 3? Even 4. I mean, it really wouldn't have broken the game to give us Deathblow 4 in a Attuned skill. It seems way overly cautious, especially for how Ayaz treats this game. So that is a strange area to hold back on, where they're only going to give us +4 attack. But honestly, as fodder, I still have Deathblow Echo as a 2. I mean, it is unique, and I do like attack speed clash in the kit, but I have a hard time ranking this unit any higher. I really do enjoy the skill, but it's like an extra thing that if I'm inheriting and I just have an extra spot, then you're getting Deathblow Echo. I am not seeking out that skill. Utility, however, I gave this unit a 6, and I've talked about it, but I keep finding ways to use this unit. She is really incredible and a lot of fun. So if this is one of your fodder factories, I think this is an excellent choice, and I've really enjoyed using her. She's kind of fantastic. When we look at builds, I mean, you have to look at the Gale Force build. I just talked about it, but this is really fantastic. I still have Flower of Tribute on her. There is a case to be made that you want to upgrade that to some other arcane weapon because of the cooldown that you get in that from, say, Arcane Devourer. But we're obviously waiting for the next thing to come up, but I love the pre-combat damage, and the support from that is fantastic. If you stack this up this way, you still get Gale Force off fairly reliably. So I keep that in mind. Attack speed mastery with the Canto built in is fantastic, and momentum means, of course, you're getting Gale Force pretty regularly. So this is a lot of fun and makes me really wish I had Momentum 4 fodder laying around. Obviously, this isn't a Gale Force team, and I've had this based around Sigurd, but whatever your Gale Force initiator is, this unit will step in and help you just a ton. It is worth noting that I just saw recently a clear with this unit as the reinforcement, which means this unit can dance twice. So they can come in, they can dance, they get that second action, and that isn't limited. They aren't isolated at that point, so they can just keep on dancing the same unit over and over again, which is kind of fantastic and a little bit frightening. But we need to talk about a different kind of refresher now.
Watch over me.
Rearmed Lucina is still really good. There are a lot of interesting things you can do with this unit in the same way that you can use Triandra. I still like Arcane Threma, to be completely honest with you, and I think there are cases where you want to use that over giant axe, but let's look at what exactly this unit does. Arcane Threma has Slaying and Omni +5. You get some nice visible debuffs on the opponent, and then you get some nice in-combat debuffs, as well as tempo and null follow-up. That's fantastic. I do wish we had a special acceleration, but that's probably just me wishing that, because then this would be the perfect Gale Force weapon that you could hand out. But anyway, Future Sight. Obviously, you have Self-Refresh and Swap, and then you have Attack Speed +6, which is very valuable. Treachery, which is so underrated and a fantastic buff. And then, of course, you have damage reduction, which is okay. Again, with all the piercing, that's not fantastic, but really you're looking at that treachery, and that is incredibly valuable. When we talk about how this unit ranks, again, I still think Arcane Threma is very usable, which is why I have this unit as a 5, as well as a lot of good fodder. Attack Speed Clash is still good. I do like Excel better, but Attack Speed Clash is still usable. It's the utility that you really look about. And the reason I have this unit ranked over a unit like Triandra is because it is so important to cram as much attack as you can possibly get out of units, and that is Treachery. That is something that bumps this unit up just a bit more, and it is so hard to kill things now, and any unit that helps make that better is valuable, and Lucina is right there. Again, 6 isn't crazy high, so don't go nuts, but this unit can do a lot of really fun things. If you're looking at the build, I've shown a couple Gale Force builds in a row. I know I did put Giant Axe on her because I thought that was fun. I think there's a case to be made for either one. For this particular build, though, I think Arcane Giant Axe does well. Gale Force, an extra movement spot, as well as the Canto from the Sigurd Ring, is fantastic. Flared Sparrow, and keep in mind, Flared Sparrow, I know that we have Breath of Life. Absolutely. But there's a case to be made to have Flared Sparrow just to try to get rid of any sort of other terrain like ice or stones that could be problematic. Speed Defense Detect is fantastic on her, and Shadow Shift plus the Sigurd Ring means good things happen. Absolutely just good things happen. The last little piece here is Heavy Blade. That means this is going to be a secondary initiator, because you're not going to expect Heavy Blade to proc against a lot of the biggest frontline units that you have there, but an attack of 74 here is not bad at all, and if you're using this unit to back up Sigurd, I think they make a really nice 1-2 punch and can complement each other fantastically. You add in Dogger there, and you've got a ton of range on the team. This is a fun thing to do, and I think this is still usable in the meta right now. But next we need to go to a unit that is really near and dear to my heart.
Enough of that.
What do you say about this peony? I mean, there's something to be said for rating this unit higher just because the availability was better. I mean, having this unit on Hero Rises means a ton of folks were able to get this unit and use her and get tons of merges for cheaper than they would normally. There's also the fact that she's green, so you can get more of her. Melee flyers have so many options for fodder, and I think this unit is good just as a unit. If we look at all the stuff this unit has, Flower of Caring has Slaying and Omni +5. You have Healing, and then you have DR, which is okay. But to allies in cardinal directions, you get a ton of extra stats. But to allies in cardinal directions, you get extra stats. You get Healing after combat, which is underrated and is very, very nice. And then, of course, Tender Dreams, you get Orders, which is always fantastic. You get an Omni +4. I do wish that was a little higher. And then you get Canto one-handed out, which, again, if you're talking about Gale Force, that's really valuable. But really anything now, positioning is so difficult. Having anything that helps you position a little better makes things just so much easier. Attack Oath Echo, though, is very, very underrated. There are so many cases where you have trouble getting orders. Think about Summoner Duels, Openers, or in particular on defense, on AR defense, having something that can allow better movement is really fantastic. And this is, again, for free, just as an attuned skill. This is something that I have actually foddered for specifically when I needed orders on a unit. This is something that I've gone out and got, and Peony being able to hand that out is pretty fantastic. If we look at the ratings, again, because of that, I've got her at a fodder of 5, and I'm really high on Attack with Echo. Well, mid-high, but I like that skill a lot. Utility, though, again, we talked about it, but dancers are fantastic, and the ability to get all of the different things that attuned units have. When you look at the utility rating, what this really looks at is the versatility, and you have a lot of the same stuff where this can be used in a Gale Force team, and that's fantastic, but the healing and the extra stats that you're giving to your Omni tanks or your saviors is pretty valuable, and that bumps this unit just a little bit higher than Triandra. As far as the build goes, I've got another Gale Force build because that seems to be the theme of this tier, but this is a very good way to use this unit. Wings of Mercy 4 is fantastic. That Crux skill, though, and we talked about it a little bit, but having this on units right now in both the player and enemy phase in support is incredibly valuable. We don't have a whole lot of full null follow-up, and so this is something that can really come in handy. But if you think about this in context of Gale Force, I mean, there are a lot of units that just don't have the speed that they need. You add this in and suddenly they double, and that changes things a lot. It's also snuck up on me before. So this is obviously the ranged Gale Force version with Lucina coming in at you, but this is a fun way to use this unit. So this concludes our role player tier. And you can see we kind of have a range there, all the way from the lower version, which is Ingrid, who's just on the very edge there, up to the higher with Triandra and Lucina and Peony. These are all very good units. If you have them, you can use them in a lot of different fun ways. So keep that in mind. We need to move on to our next tier, though, which is B tier. And we're getting into the higher ones here. This is contributors on the right team or fodder scenario. I know fodder scenario is kind of a funny thing to think about, but this is when you go out and get that fodder specifically. These are very strong attuned and rearmed skills that we're going to talk about, and I'm really excited.
I want my life back!
We're going to start with Oblivion's favorite unit in Hortensia, and this is a fascinating unit. Hortensia, all of the Hortensias, all 2 of them, have really interesting support scenarios, but this one in particular is the only staff rearmed unit, which is something. Like that, there are a lot of really fantastic skills you can give healers right now. Ice Lock is one of them that we just got, but let's look at specifically the weapons before we talk about the fodder. Arcane Charmer has Slaying and Omni +5, guaranteed follow-up, true damage, 7 HP to allies within 3 spaces, which alone is an excellent support skill, and then you have cooldown support as well. Glittering Anima has attack speed +5, null guard, to unit allies within 3 spaces, you have attack speed +6, Canto, and null debuffs. And then to closest foes and foes within 3, you have speed res -6, panic, and discord. That is a lot of stuff in there in a flying healer that can do some pretty phenomenal things as far as both positional support and debuff support. Let's look a little bit at the ratings though. Fodder, again, this is it. Like, this is what you've got for healers. I've got Magic Shield Plus here. Obviously, we have Ice Lock as well. You have Holy Panic, Glitter of Light, all of these fantastic things you can hand out to this unit. I constantly forget that Resonance 4 is something that you can put on these units, as well as something like Shadow Shift. There are a lot of interesting things you can do with healers right now, and this is something that helps you hand that out. When we're talking about utility, I do have this unit as a 5. Again, I think this is a good support, but it is so hard to fit supports in right now. You have got to be really special, and this unit is good, but I don't know if she's amazing enough to reach the heights of anything past that mid-tier in terms of utility. When we look at builds, and I've got this as a support for Timerra in Astra Season, and we have obviously Arcane Charmer, Glitter of Light, and we have the Sigurd Ring to go out and use Magic Shield and then be able to Canto back. Glittering Anima in and of itself does a lot to support, but Also, you have Soaring Echo, and again, we talked about that, but being able to have this unit help out positionally is fantastic. You put this unit on a team with Elamine, and you have got a pretty powerful Timerra to deal with. This is a good unit, but it's worth mentioning that a lot of what's driving this unit forward is, again, the unique way she can hand out fodder. This is the only one of her kind right now. We're going to get into a unit that has a lot more utility, though.
You're a slippery one.
I love Leila. I'm really excited that she's in the game, and I look forward to when they finally give us another Matthew. This unit is sneaky good, though. The ability to put out Flash and Undefended cannot be underrated, and this unit hits pretty hard on top of that. There are a lot of really interesting places where this unit shows up and is an utter pain. Let's look at the weapon itself. This is Arcane Sly Knife. We have Slaying, Omni plus 14, lull speed defense, you've got true damage, you've got flat DR, and specifically you've got that jump equals 1. Remember, a lot of your daggers are just desperately trying to get lethality off. Dark Perfume is fascinating. So you've got Times Pulse, you've got Disarm Trap, you've got Null Guard, True Damage, and then debuffs on the enemy. And then, of course, to closest foes and Splashed, you've got Undefended and Flashed. I say Splashed. On Undefended, it's just to the closest foes. On Flash, it is Splashed to other units. Let's look a little bit at the rating now. Now, fodder, again, I've got her at a 5. I do think Lookout Force is really interesting, and I think Arcane Sly Knife is very usable. So these are two things that are two feathers in her cap. I'm still mad that they gave us attack speed finish 4 instead of a Sly skill, but that is not this unit's fault. When you look at the utility, though, I keep on finding ways to use this unit, and I've used her in different player phase clears. I use her on defense now because she is incredibly powerful. You put that together with her being an infantry unit and having all of these different skills, as well as being able to house all of the disarm skills, and you've got a really powerful unit. Again, B tier is an excellent place to be, and I think if you chose this unit, you would have a lot of fun. Lookout Force in particular, I just wish it was inheritable to more than just daggers, but I've got to tell you, it really lends itself to some very creative play. Up here, I've got her on Light Season, and pairing her with folks like Hresfelger, who is very hard, and of course Felix, who has just absolute insane shenanigans, means you can get a lot done on the opposing team. You saw all of the AoE damage that this unit can get out, and having Blazing Flame on this unit is a ton of fun. I really like this unit, so if you've got her, I think this is a fun way to use her, and I think you've got a lot of other different ways as well. But we are going to get to our first armor coming up now.
I will tear you to shreds.
Rearmed Robin was tough to place. Arcane Grima itself has fallen by the wayside a lot, but Shield Fighter is one of the most valuable skills in the game. And that lends to inflated ratings, but I'm not sure Shield Fighter is going to fall off for a bit. I think we're going to see that unit see a lot of supremacy for some time now. And I could be wrong on that. You know how guesses go in this game, but I think that makes it easier to invest in this unit, along with the fact that this is also a dragon. There are a ton of unique things you can do with this unit with both dragon skills and armor skills. I wish she wasn't colorless, and that's not reflected in the ratings. If I did color as well, that would make things much, much harder. But colorless, obviously, you get fewer of them, and you're trying to get as many as possible so that you can hand out fodder. Let's look a little bit at Arcane Grima, though. You have Slaying, Omni plus 5, Guaranteed Follow-Up, True Damage, 7 HP, and Adaptive Damage. This is one of those things, normally, we talked about it. Arcane weapons generally age a little more gracefully. This one, Arcane Felstone came on, and even Arcane Sunstone, and they just outclassed this weapon. So this wasn't one of the cases where this was just a fantastic thing that stayed good for a very long time. It just faded away. Dragonhide is okay. You've got negates armor effectiveness, and Omni -8, and special acceleration. Really, I mean, we have to look at the fodder, and fodder of 7 reflects how many unique things you can do with this unit. All of the dragon skills are in there, and there are a lot of really good dragon skills. I mean, you've got the wave skill that gives out Scowl, the res wave, which is fantastic. Even High Dragon Wall, which is the best scoring B skill in the game. I mean, that's something that you can hand out with this unit as well. But I mean, Shield Fighter is clearly the highlight of all of that. And you also have some other interesting B skills for armors. You have the new Wily Fighter, the new Slick Fighter. Armors are seeing a resurrection, a huge resurgence, and this is a unit that can help you get those armor skills on there, as well as having Dragon Roar and Armored Blaze, Beacon, or Flow. It's tough to say enough good about this unit from a fodder standpoint. From a utility standpoint, honestly, this completely rides off of Shield Fighter, and I don't know how long that will last. Right now, the meta is such that if you have Shield Fighter, then you survive a lot of the very big meta threats right now. And in particular, I'm looking at you, Felix, but there are a lot of survivability things that you gain through Shield Fighter, and that bumps up the utility of this unit. Again, I worry about something like that long term. And if we look at the build, I mean, we've taken everything special about this unit away. We've added in Arcane Fellstone and Reposition Gate, which is really interesting, and Guard Echo and DR Twin and Save. This is a great build. Like, this is something that works. This is something that I've used and functions very, very well. So on an offense team and paired with Neathhogger, you can do some really fun things, and this is a great way to use this unit. But next we're going to talk about a fan favorite.
I don't want to lose!
When you talk about units that have a cult following like Marianne, normally what that entails is a unit that scales well with your skill level. So the better you are, the better they produce. In particular, a lot of units like Marianne have a high learning curve, and they're harder to use at the beginning for players who are just getting into it, but they reward you once you practice with them quite a bit. This is a textbook case of that, and this unit can be very powerful in the right hands. If we look at the weapon, we have Arcane Blutgang, which has Slang, a lot of in-combat stance that usually end up at 14. We have True Damage, Flat DR, Null Guard, and Special Jump, which is important because you're going to want to proc Requiem Dream, which has additional damage based on res. Piercing, you have non-pierceable DR, Canto 2, which is important, and Shadow Shift Dance, which is really the thing that you want to look at. The thing that this unit can do is go in and attack, and then once they attack, if they've procced Requiem Dream, they can Canto and dance someone and add an additional action in that way, which is really incredible and makes for a lot of creative play. When you look at the rating, I've got the fodder at a 6. Arcane Blutgang is good, but it's not earth-shatteringly good. It is definitely an upgrade in the red tome area, and the fact that it looks like a sword leads to a lot of really funny shenanigans, but it's not something that is just setting the meta on fire. Still, 6 is good, and Speed Res Discord and Speed Res Crux, all of those play into a really nice kit that give you things that you can inherit immediately from this unit to another unit. The utility, I've got it a 7, and again, I really like the ability to have that extra dance, and the way they instituted is very nice. It definitely has its counters. Obviously, if Canto Control is active, then you don't get a dance, and that is something that you definitely have to watch out for, but using this unit as a secondary initiator and then as a dancer on top of that makes for a valuable piece of your player phase puzzle. If we're looking at a build here, I've got the Wings of Mercy for Sly Swift Sparrow, Soaring Echo, Speed Res Crux build here, and this is a lot of fun. I have seen a lot of crazy highlights with this unit. So if you are looking for a way to build this, I think this is fantastic. particularly that Wings of Mercy 4 can make her really fun. I think if you just inherited that on her, you would have a blast. And then, of course, you have her backed up by Ninja Lucina and Hresvelgr, and Rune is, of course, the new player phase thing that just helps you get extra units and absolutely dominate the enemy. So this is a fun unit. Now, the next one that's coming up has better fodder, but definitely not as good a utility.
I'll make this quick.
Attuned Ivy is such an interesting unit. Now, the problem is this unit has lost a lot in regards of hitting power. The potent in her weapon is still very good, but you have to be really special in order to kill things right now. And this unit doesn't quite get it. The thing though is Soaring Echo is amazing. It is in the argument for the best attuned skill all around. There are some really good ones, but this one is excellent. If we're looking at exactly what everything does, Icebound Tome has slaying and stats. You have that fantastic warping where it's within 2 spaces of an ally, which is fantastic. Or you get +1 movement depending on whether you're with a support partner, which it kind of makes her very interesting and very versatile. Null Guard, you have DR, and you have post-combat healing. Obsession has a lot of extra stats. Guaranteed follow-up denial. You have piercing on follow-up, which is important because you have potent follow X%. So you have the better potent skill there. And of course you have Soaring Echo, which is absolutely fantastic. So the thing about this unit is being able to hit 3 times is really nice. The problem is, again, we've seen this huge jump in nukes right now, really in tanks, and so nukes have had to accommodate, and so anyone that is not Bernie or Lucina has really been left behind. And so this is still a good unit, but if we look at the ratings, I have her at about a 5. And then we look at the fodder, I have 8 because Soaring Echo is so good. Even with her being a ranged flyer, which means there's a lot less fodder that you can give to other folks, I still think that Soaring Echo is good enough to propel her to that point. The thing I want to bring up, and this is where you really have to dig into the way I'm doing this rating. This is a unit that's right next to Marianne. If you get this unit, you're going to be able to hand out Soaring Echo to more folks. If you get Marianne, you're going to have a unit that you can use more in the field. When units are this close together, you've really got to dig into which you would rather have based on what you need. And that could change things just a bit, but I still think they belong in the same tier here. If we're looking at a build, Resonance 4 is just the way to go. And Deadly Miasma, I have seen this help a ton in ways to clear out all of the crazy ice that we see in so many places. You add on someone like Embla, and you can really do a pretty good job picking off some of the more painful units that we have in the meta right now without having to deal with saviors and coming in and dealing with the saviors in some other way. This is a fantastic unit, but again, she is better fodder than she is as a unit.
Shut up and obey!
Okay, I'm about to talk about this unit. I want you to remember how high I have this unit ranked, but I'm disappointed. And this unit had the potential to be so creative, and they they took away the B skill, and Shield Fighter is the absolute best thing you could put on an armor right now, and they made it to where you can't because she has Brutal Ferocity. And I love the gravity and the Pathfinder make this unit so much fun, and it's so hard to use her because surviving without Shield Fighter is very, very difficult. So I really like this unit, obviously because of my rating, but I'm disappointed that IS didn't allow us to put Shield Fighter on there without giving up a lot of what makes this unit unique. If we look at the Arcane Giant Axe, we have Slaying, you have quite a bit of stats that normally add up to 14, you have True Damage, you have Flat DR, Special Jump, and at start of both phases, you have Null Attack Defense Penalties and Null Panic, which is nice. Brutal Ferocity is really where it's at though with Pathfinder. Attack Defense -18. You have Guaranteed Follow-Up, Null Guard, piercing, and at the start of turn and after unit acts in cardinal directions gives out attack defense -7 and gravity. Gravity is so much fun. I've been playing with it this week and I love it. I have this unit under summoner support and with bonus stats, and I still have to go through just huge hoops in order to keep this unit alive. So you know what, let's look at the ratings here. I have her rated as a 6. I still think this unit is very usable, but I just wish they would have let us use the B skill. The fodder, we've talked about it. So 80 twin save is already very good, and Armored Blaze is nice along with that. The thing is, you hand out Shield Fighter, and this is our first melee armor that we've got. And we have another one coming out, but this was the first one, and that was really exciting because there are so many things that melee armors needed to hand out. Being able to give out Shield Fighter alone is fantastic, but all of these other skills, all these other armor skills are great too. Weaving Fighter is something specific to these kind of units, and it is nice to be able to have this. I like that there are more of these so that we can hand out skills like Shield Fighter more easily. I just wanted that utility to be at least a 7, and she doesn't quite get there because, again, I really wanted Shield Fighter. Have I said that enough? Anyway, so here's the build, and I mean, we have Shield Fighter on there. This is... you can use this unit this way. This is just fine. There's so many unique things that you miss out on. Past that, though. We're getting past that. Shield Fighter Pavis is an excellent combination, and using this unit this way is fantastic. There's nothing wrong with this. Pair this unit up with Neathhugger, and you got a lot of fun things going on. This unit is good. Especially, I mean, I said right now, but I'm using this unit during bonus season, so having this unit as a bonus is very nice. I don't think I'll be using that unit past that, though, because again, I have to jump through so many hoops in order to keep this unit alive that by the time I get through with this unit, Brave Edelgard might be a better choice, which makes me a little sad. So I hate to end that way. Again, this is a good unit in a good tier. This unit had potential to be more, and we didn't quite make it. So here is B tier. Again, all of these are excellent contributors, and all of them have good fodder to hand out as well. This is a good tier. If you are selecting one of these as your fodder factory, or if they've selected you, I think you're pretty happy. But we need to get into A tier, and these are key contributors with powerful fodder. These are units that start to do both. We don't look at just one or the other. This is where we really start talking about the power of role compression within a fodder factory like we have been.
For Lord Sombron!
I did not foresee the terrain effects taking over quite like they have. There are times where there's so much terrain that I have difficulties figuring out what's underneath them. There's a couple times I've set saves up where someone was on a mountain and I just couldn't see it because it had, deadly miasma on it. This unit almost works as a cleanser. Like that's the space that this unit puts out to Divine Vein Stone is so big that this unit can just cleanse that away. We've seen that with Mythic Lumera and how good that is. But you add on the fact that this helps defend against AoEs, which is one of the big ways units are doing damage. And just that alone, just for Divine Vein Stone, this unit has a lot of incredible things going on. Then you remember that this is an infantry dragon, and there are a ton of different fodder options. And it makes this unit very, very powerful. That's why this unit is rated so high here. If we're looking at Arcane Fellstone specifically, we have Slang, you have stats, you have Pierceable DR, you have cooldown reduction, and null follow-up. This is a solid Dragonstone. We look at Corrupted Dragon, though, and the Divine Vein Stone is really what you're after there. The fact that she also gets Piercing on special proc is really nice. And then to units and allies in 5x5, you forget about this sometimes, but Omni +4 and Null Guard is really, really fantastic. And 5x5 is not a small area, so that is an additional support that this unit can deal out. If we look at the ratings, I've got this a fodder of a 7. Again, it's an infantry dragon, and there are so many things you could put on this unit. High Dragon Wall and Laguz Friend 4 on the B skill is something those are both fantastic. Barricade is something, I mean, that is a very rare skill that you can hand to this unit and then be able to duplicate it much more easily. But Firm Canto Curb Stomp is another, and the Scowl skills, if we even talked about those yet, those are fantastic. And the new Spiked skills, those are great as well. There are so many good things you can duplicate with this unit, on top of her having good utility. Being both a 7 and a 7 is really solid, and this is a fun unit to use and can be incredibly valuable on your team. If you're looking for a build, okay, so obviously having the Divine Vein Stone is something that's unique to this unit and is very fun. You're most likely keeping that with Corrupted Dragon. But this is an option. And again, if you're handing Barricade out anyway, you can put this on this unit and have, Gatekeeper, but better, because this unit can actually attack things. You throw Attack Oath Echo on there, and it helps you with the mobility of this unit. You've got Speed Res Discord, which helps debuff the enemy. You notice I've stacked Res on here in order for that to happen better. This is a fun way to use this unit. There's a lot of different ways to use this unit. Just keep that in mind. I've showcased Lumera with her player face build and basically using Drawback and Wings of Mercy 4 to spread stone everywhere and get rid of ice. That is another way you can use this unit. There's a lot of versatility here, but for now I have her paired up with Neathhogger and Fjorm to help against any sort of warping coming in. But it is just as valid to use this unit as a Divine Stone distribution service. And you can even have two teams, one with her with Barricade and the other with Divine Vein Stone. There are a lot of different ways you can use this. But we need to talk about our first meta-relevant Omni tank.
Love conquers all!
I've officially run out of screen. Like this, I'm having to overlap these skills because there's so much going on with Attuned Caeda, and in particular Guard Echo. Guard Echo is really fantastic in a lot of different ways. It is a little less so because there is so much null guard in the meta. And I mean, you've seen that as we've gone on, you've seen more and more of that in the weapons. But the fact that you can throw it on as an attuned skill is not something to blink at. I mean, that's kind of good. And there's some additional DR here, which is helpful. I mean, there's a lot of piercing out, but I mean, understand a lot of the piercing is 50%. So even if this is 10% DR, it's extra DR that you're throwing on there. This is a very good attuned skill and can be used in a lot of different ways. You've seen it on a lot of different builds that I've showcased up until this point, but we've talked about that enough. Let's look at the Pure Wing Spear specifically. You have Slaying, you have a lot of stats that most of the time equal 14. You have Armor and Cavalry Effectiveness, you have Piercing of 50%, DR of 30%, and 7 HP healing unless it's a Cav or Armor, and 14 HP healing. IS. If you're watching this, why? Just make it 14 healing. Why do we need all the weird conditions? This is driving me crazy. Okay, just for IS. For you guys, back to this. To unit allies in 2 spaces, you get attack speed +6 and orders. Orders, we've talked about it, is very underrated, and getting it for free is a big deal. Then we have Believe in Love, and you have Phantom Speed +7, which is very good. You have some additional debuffs, Spectrum Unity, which is... It is good, and the problem is a lot of times if you have a lot of those debuffs on you, it means that AoEs are hitting harder, and that is a problem, but we do have dodge of 50%, and that includes AoE damage. So there's kind of back and forth there. And then you have flat DR, and again, they had to make it confusing where it's higher if it's a Cav or Armor than it is for other types of units. I don't know. We talked about Guard Echo. Guard Echo's, it's a good skill. It is a very good attuned skill. This is a very good kit though. There's a lot of times where we see these grab bags that aren't very cohesive. This is not that way. This has a very specific role that it is going after. And if you saw my Countering Felix episode where we talked about countering both Felix and Sigurd, this is a unit that can do fairly well versus both of those as long as you have enough speed stacked on this unit, which, I mean, with things like Spectrum Unity and of course Phantom Speed makes that easier. As far as the rating, again, I've got that at about a 7/7. It's kind of the range that we're at right now, but for fodder, I love Guard Echo, and look at all the things you can get. I mean, we talked about it before, but this is the same thing with Ganglöt. Gust, Boulder, Godlike Reflexes, all of those are excellent, and you've got all sorts of crazy DCs that you have right now, and you have Momentum. Momentum is something you can have on this unit and then give out to whoever, as well as the spiked skills and Endless Tempest and the Firm Canto. A lot of these things I've said so many times, but it's good, and all of them can be put in this package that is Caeda. So that is something that is nice for this unit. If we're looking at a specific build here, this is the Ecthenir Elamine Omni Tank team, and both of those units, Ecthenir and Elamine, can really help this unit excel. The one thing you might want on this team is something like Gatekeeper or some sort of barricade, but it's hard to get everything on there. Still, this is an excellent unit that stacks a lot of speed. The one thing I would caution is speed-based tanking is always something that is hard to keep up with. It is nice that this unit has crazy things like Distant Counter Echo, which is fantastic. And so you can stack things like Bonus Doubler 4, and then in conjunction with Ecthenir, you get a lot more stats on this unit because your A skill has been freed up. So lots of fun things to do with this unit, and Omni Tanks in general are they have a lot of toys right now, and this unit can both help you use them and help you give them out. But we're gonna talk about a unit that I was low on when I first saw her, and then she got a ton of additional skills that have made her very, very good.
Bonds are eternal.
So we've just gone through all of these other units, and it's been hard to fit everything on the screen. Right? It's been crazy. And then you see this, and suddenly everything's fairly small. All of these skills are very focused, though. And this is one of those things where you don't need a big, complicated kit when you have the right skills on there. And the other thing is it means it doesn't have a whole lot of conditions. Like, say, it's different for calves and armors, which is just silly. But anyway, Attuned Azura is very, very good. Let's look at exactly what we have going on. And we have Tripath Splitter, have an additional speed, and then you have Canto, which is distance traveled +1 max of 4, which is excellent on a healer. You have an Omni +5, but this unit is really not about attack. What this unit is about is to unit and allies within 2 spaces, attack speed +6, no follow-up, and that's the dodge version, to anyone, and no panic to anyone within 2 spaces. That's fantastic, and we talked about the lack of no follow-up in preference weapon form right now. Being able to hand that out just by being next to Azura is kind of fantastic. Then we have Changing Waters, which gives +1 movement, which is the Azura thing, of course. You get Incited as well. And the Echo skill is Wings of Mercy, which I like, but is not as amazing as we thought it was going to be. I think everyone expected the next Wings of Mercy to be on a seal, which would have made things a lot of fun, but we didn't quite get it that way. This is still very good though, and if we look at the ratings, I've got a fodder of 7. There's a lot of things that this unit gives out, and Mercy Echo is one of them, but it makes for very good fodder from this unit, but the utility of 8 is what really sets this unit apart. The thing that changed from when this unit released to now is the rise of melee nuking and melee gale force. Having this unit be able to sit next to, say, Felix, and he, goes off into the ether, and this unit keeps up with him because you put Sigurd Ring on there and she has extra movement, is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, and lends to a lot of neat things. And in fact, let's just go to the build. And we need to look at this. So this is the Gale Force build, and I have her instead of Felix, I have her with Sigurd, because you know that those are the two melee threats right now. But this is fantastic to be able to have also Shadow Shift, where you have additional movement that you can have with this unit. This is enough damage that you can proc Gale Force pretty regularly with Heavy Blade, especially as a secondary initiator. This is a fun unit to use and someone who I am really enjoying right now. I mean, this is a unit because of the rise of melee calves and, you know, honorary calves like Felix. She has really seen a huge resurgence, and she's excellent. She's one of my favorite dancers in the game, and we're about to get to one of my favorite strategies in the game.
With Ephraim's might!
I feel like I've just been forever a Vantage apologist. Vantage is a fun strategy because when it works, it's so spectacular. And this is one of those units that helps make that happen. Especially, I mean, looking at units like, well, Sigurd. This unit really does well versus units like Sigurd because you get to smack them before the reckoning comes after the AoE. So that's fantastic. Probably the bigger thing with this unit, I think this unit is a very good Omni tank, don't get me wrong. Null Sea Disrupt is fantastic in an Attuned skill, and especially with the rise of Flash that we've seen lately, this unit has fodder now that it can hand out to people that can really change the way they play, and that's huge, especially when you think about it in conjunction with a lot of the units out right now that are Omni tanks that are also rearmed and attuned units. These units can then take on Null Sea Disrupt in the attuned skill and keep on using whatever they had in the rest of their kit. That is very, very powerful. But let's look at what this unit has. Sisterly Axe has Slaying, Phantom Speed +7, Attack Speed +6, Dodge. You have a lot of in-combat debuffs that normally add up to 14. You have Flat DR equals 20% of speed, which is excellent. You have Piercing of 50%, and then you have 7 HP healing post-combat. Moonlit Bengal Q has Vantage based on a speed check. You have debuffs to the enemy, true damage, special jump, which is really important for all Vantage units, and Null Guard, and of course, Null Sea Disrupt as an echo skill. This is a good unit. If I had one thing that I would want added to this, and after tons of sims, I do wish he had a little bit more speed. And I know it looks like there's a lot of speed being added here, but that speaks more to how fast units like Felix are. It is incredibly hard to outspeed Felix, and this unit can do it if you just heap on the support, and that is tough because this unit came out after Felix. So what do you do? As far as the ratings go, Fodder is an 8 because I think Null Sea Disrupt is that important. That has it rated up in the same area as Soaring Echo, and I think that plays out. Both of those skills are incredibly valuable and can change the way that other units play. That is transformative. As far as utility, I do have her at a 7. I obviously have other units higher there. Vantage, again, is when it works, it's fantastic. But you have to have very specific situations. It is not an every match kind of thing. I mean, you've even seen like Lilina has Hardy Bearing built in, and Hardy Bearing Seal in general made sure that Vantage was never going to take over because there's always that built-in counter. If Vantage starts to come back, Hardy Bearing's there. So it is almost better for the Vantage community that it is not a popular thing, because the more popular it gets, the less effective it is. If we're looking at a build though, this is Endless Tempest having Dull All in it is fantastic, and making this into an Omni tank with Ecthenir support and Elamine and special jump with Thor. There's so many things in Anima Season that really play to this unit's strength. So this is a lot of fun to use. I do have attack stacked here. There is definitely an argument to try very hard to stack speed, but for this in particular, I wanted to be able to kill as many things as possible. This is a great unit and a lot of fun. Here is A tier with our key contributors, and all of these units are very, very good. Lumera is probably the least contributor-ish, but the fact that she has such good fodder is what's propelled her up there. And then you can also use all the Divine Vein Stones. So these are excellent. You do notice that most of these are attuned units. Again, attuned skills right now just keep getting better. All of these units have very good ones, but we're about to move into S tier, and S tier has both meta-defining units and fodder, and these are where the real powerhouses are.
Grant me your power.
Attuned Micaiah is one of the most busted units that this game has ever released. She's fantastic, and she's an attuned unit. You'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who would fault you if you made this unit your main fodder factory. She's incredible, and incredible in a lot of different modes. Let's look in particular at what she's got. Silver of Dawn has slaying, armor and cav effectiveness, and omni guidance, and that is fantastic because you're not limited to, well, even cavs can use it. That's great. After start of turn on enemy phase to unit and allies within 2 spaces, you have 10 HP, penalty conversion, penalty cleansing, and that is, there's a specific order for that, and that's only the top 2, but that's still very good. You have debuffs, you have lull attack res, true damage, all of that's fantastic. And then we get to use protection, which has piercing built into it, more debuffs, and then on target with highest stat, splashed, you have an omni chill, exposure, and discord. So this unit is buffing, cleansing, debuffing the enemy, and can hit really hard on top of that. And then we have Fartrace Echo. Fartrace Echo is a little lackluster compared to all these other things, which is kind of interesting. All of this has just been amazing. And then we have Fartrace Echo, which is Canto remaining 1 and true damage equals 3, especially in a day where we had the Sigurd ring. This just feels okay. And when we look at the ratings, you're going to see this. This is the highest utility that I have in this list, period. If you're just looking at utility for rearmed and attuned units, this is it. Stop here. This is the one you want to get. The fodder, I talked about, Fartrace Echo is just okay, and she's a ranged flyer. So that really hurts her, the ability for her to be used in that capacity. Now, there's a reason she's an S tier. This unit is so good in so many modes that we look past that, but that is something that makes it harder to use her. If we look at the build, and I don't want to take anything away from her because she's incredible, the most recent way I've been seeing her used is on offense to cleanse things like Undefended, which is just everywhere right now, particularly with Tree Boy just absolutely just showering that on people. But we have the Sigurd ring there, and we have Attack Oath Echo for extra movement. Breath of Life, this is probably one of the best Breath of Life users in the game because of how much other support she gives, and you can use that on offense or defense. And then of course Crystalline Water, because she does have a lot of visible res checks. This helps out a ton and also gives her extra attack. This unit is phenomenal. This is not a crazy build, and she's still amazing with it. I've even got Maiden Solace on there, but I most likely are gonna probably swap that out for reposition. I love using this unit, and I think she's fantastic. But let's move to one of the newer units in this list.
Gutsy, aren't you?
Attuned Hector is fascinating to me. I keep on finding ways to use this unit, which is weird because this is an armor. Normally, this is fairly obvious how you use these, but I've even gone back to much like how Brave Corrin was used, where you can hand out Bulwark and rocks to your Omni tank. That's kind of interesting. I was talking to someone. Honestly, if this unit could inherit Barricade, there's a good argument for it being the best support for all of Omni tanks. Now, obviously, it can't do that, so this is still a good support because Divine Vein Stone and Bulwark are two things that you really need right now. But we really need to talk about what this weapon has because this is a very good one. You have Fellowship Blade, which is slaying, lots of debuffs, attack defense minus 16, guard, lots of true damage in the form of treachery. You have flat DR, and to unit and allies in 2 at start of both phases, you get defense res plus 6, bulwark, and null panic. All of those are very good. And then you have Oath of Ostia, which you have HP plus 5, which is kind of underrated. That's actually pretty good. You have Divine Vein Stone, which is very good, and you don't have to attack to get it to be used, which is excellent. You have more debuffs, Null Guard, Special Jump of 2, and Piercing. And then you have Distant Counter Echo. We're at the point where we have enough good Echo skills where you could say that this is not the best, but it's still very, very good. That's a lot of good stuff in this kit. If we're looking at the ratings, I've got the fodder at an 8. I do like Distant Counter. I think it's very good. I think Wily Fighter and Attack Defense Twin Save are also good, but you get to hand out Shield Fighter and the slew of other things that melee armors get to hand out. And this is a great unit. What really sets this apart, though, is the utility at a 9. And again, as a far save, I've got this ranked as the best far save in the game right now, which is nutty. But if you look at all of the places that it can be used, including Summoner Duels and in Aether-Raid's defense, I think this unit outperforms Fjorm. Fjorm specifically in offense. AR offense is better. But I still think if you consider all the modes, this unit it has one up on her. Also, there's a case to be made that you just add in Felicia and then you have Null Counter Disrupt and then you're great. But anytime you have to add in an extra support, it does make it harder to use a unit. If you can't tell, I've really been pleasantly surprised with this unit and how well he works. I do like Hector, so I like to be able to use him. If we're looking at the suggested build, I mean, I've got Shield Fighter on here, and I think long term, that is where this unit is going to settle. But I need to make sure you know I've been doing a lot of testing with just Wily Fighter, and I'm a big fan. I think this unit is really good in just the Wily Fighter Omni tank role and can be used there with a lot of great success. So you're going to end up with Shield Fighter because nukes are going to keep on getting better, and that's where you're going to have to be. But it is nice that at this point you don't have to go there yet. This unit is absolutely phenomenal, and I've had a ton of fun using him.
Let's have some fun!
So if you're doing the math, you were waiting for Timerra to pop up, and I am such a huge fan of this unit. A lot of it has to do with the fact that she is an attuned unit and was able to get Null Counter Disrupt on her whenever we started seeing the resurgence of that. The fact that she has Bulwark and then can be supported by either Barricade or Gatekeeper makes her, in my opinion, the best Omni tank in the game right now. You add on Time's Pulse Echo, which I think from a versatility standpoint is the best attuned skill in the game, and you have what I have ranked as the top rearmed and attuned unit. If we look at the skill here, Desert Spear, you have Slaying, Distant Counter, Bulwark, Omni, you have lots of stats. You have Flat DR, you have Omni Lull, And to you allies within 3 spaces, you have speed defense +4 and flat DR equals 10 on specials. That's already really good. Even in support, that's really good. But specifically, that bulwark is so powerful. And that is something that is very nice. And she's also free because she has Sandstorm as a special to use Laguz Friend 4, which is very powerful as well. Sandstorm damage boost equals 80% times defense. This is a weird unit. If this unit can't proc Sandstorm, bad things are going to happen. That is the one thing about this unit. You absolutely have to be able to proc Sandstorm. But you also have damage equals 150% of defense, and this unit has defense that is just stacked. And you have frozen based on defense, as well as DR that isn't pierceable because it's in Sandstorm. All of that's fantastic, but you also have Times Pulse 4 in the form of Times Pulse Echo. There's a lot of good stuff here. This is a fantastic unit. As far as the ratings, we got a fodder of 9. Times Pulse Echo is so versatile, and you've seen it on a lot of the builds for these units. It is incredibly powerful. So much of what we do is special based, and this helps you get your specials off. That's fantastic. And we talked about the utility, but I think this is the best Omni tank in the game right now. There's not much else to say. We've talked about all of the fodder that melee infantry units can get, and this unit can get it and use it. This unit is fantastic value, and obviously I have her ranked as the best Rearmed Attuned unit in the game. As far as the build goes, there's not a whole lot of creative ways you can build her just because, I mean, Omni tanks have a very specific format right now. Laguz Friend 4, Breath of Life is something that you can outsource, but I have found that I like it better on her. It makes things a little more reliable, but Creation Pulse to help her proc Sandstorm is something that is incredibly valuable, so that is something to look at if you want to give her something else. But I mean, this is fantastic. Specifically pairing her with Micaiah, I have found is really great. The nullifying debuffs and being able to take away 2 of the things that are going to be thrown on her in the form of debuffs is very, very powerful. You pair her with Lumera on top of that, and you also get AoE reduction. The way the meta is structured right now and the individual units you have, Timerra really comes out on top in a lot of different ways. And I've used this unit a ton, and I think she is absolutely fantastic. So I've been recording for almost 3 hours now because that's apparently what I do now. But I wanted to take just a step back and look at the full tier list, and there's a couple of conclusions. The first easy one is I am a bigger fan of attuned units than I am of rearmed. There are definitely advantages to having rearmed weapons that you can give to older units, but in the current meta right now, having attuned skills is so very powerful, and I think they have longer shelf lives than the rearmed weapons because of how fast things have been moving lately. The other thing that I really want to pound home is that if you are only using these as fodder repositories, all of these are excellent, which means you don't have wasted potential if you throw all of this stuff into Timerra and tomorrow something happens and she's now E tier. All of the fodder you've put on her is still good and usable. It gives these units in general a longer shelf life. I have some very valuable fodder on Leaf, and that hasn't gone bad just because he's the worst rearmed and attuned unit in the game. I can still use that, and if one falls into my lap, then I can replicate that again. So I want you to keep that in mind. As a whole, these units hold a lot of value. If you are looking for another monstrosity of a tier list, you can go look at my mythic tier list. That was a lot of fun to make. I have it bookmarked, so it's very long, but you can go right to the unit you want. Members, you are amazing. Thank you so much for all that you do. Take care and schedule an appointment with your phaologist real soon.